What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Showdown EAP show for the U.S. Open Round 1 recap and looking at Round 2 for Showdown. I got my guy Kurt with me, so this will be a fun couple days. Hopefully we can stay on schedule for the next couple days. Kurt gets called away. He gets all the women, so sometimes he gets busy. But
my bad.
I go to sleep. How's it going?
It's good. Doubling up right now. Kind of surprised because all my studs were in, besides Scotty, all my studs were in the AM PM, and it really felt like a lot of the higher price guys in the PM AM wave are doing a lot better. So like Bryson, Abear, the guys that I'm overweight on, those two guys especially. And then so I have Rom and Scotty, that's it. They're doing fine, but Ludwig and Bryson don't like 3 over. I just wish I had more from them. But you know what? I'm doubling up, and after like the carnage here, I guess I'll take that. So I think my guys fought, and I'm excited where I'm at.
Yeah, I got the leaderboard pulled up. So obviously, like with the Opens, the U.S. Open and the British Open for sure, there's tends to be a couple randoms that popped up. There's honestly not a ton. James Nicklaus is a Korn Ferry Tour player and finished at -1, so fantastic for him because this is a big opportunity. And then Thriston Lawrence, who plays on the DP World Tour. Now, I will say Rasmus Niergaard, we've been kind of on him for a couple months now, and didn't do much, I think, in the first event that we played him pretty heavy, and he ended up winning the sectional for the U.S. Open, and now he's here and he's T6 after round 1. So I did not bet him before the tournament like an idiot, but I bet him live when he was like 1 under through 6 or something like that, and he was still 150 to 1. So we'll see if that pans out for something over the next couple of days. But honestly, I mean, JJ Spawn's played great all year. Just looking through this leaderboard, Siwoo Kim was somewhat popular. Brooks Koepka and Sungjae were kind of out of nowhere. I don't know your opinion on them, but like Koepka hasn't done much over the last couple of years, and certainly on Live this year hasn't been notable for sure.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Sungjae, it always felt like Sungjae was going to flip it on at any moment, right? Like,
yeah, it was. His long-term form was kind of trending, was starting to go back up, and his short-term form was just not good. So it was an interesting dynamic between what Sungjae had done like the last couple of years, and over the last couple of months, he was pretty awful. So, but any of these guys that are really good, and honestly, we're looking at like Xander. We were talking about Xander last night, but there's plenty of these guys. Rory had a decent start and kind of fell off. But like looking through the leaderboard, like nothing too surprising. I think a lot of guys people probably were on or talked about, and certainly down at the bottom, there's guys that are a bit disappointing right now. So the cut sweat will be interesting, to say the least. But I will say it was good to see Rom gut it out. He had a really rough start, and then kind of righted the ship. So that was nice to see. He was way more popular than Scheffler with the pricing this week. You're on mute.
I was a little bit shocked by the ownership up top.
So
background noise.
Yeah. So what we'll talk about, we'll pull up the data from Fantasy Golf Bag. We'll look at the EAP data, which is a nice look in addition to strokes gained, which is available for the U.S. Open this week. You can pull it up on the live tournament stats and see everybody's strokes gained. But the EAP data kind of takes us several steps further. So we'll talk through that, and then we'll run some Showdown sims and look at what people are, which lineups and what people are kind of spitting out the most for exposures. So I don't know if you had any specific takes you wanted to get off your chest before we dive in here. It looks like weather's pretty tame for tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see.
I did want to see what the advantage ended up being, and I want to talk to you about why you think that there was that advantage, because it wasn't really
the wave split. Yeah,
it's almost a whole full shot, Drew. So like, why?
I don't know.
Because even if it's just like a quarter stroke, I love just stacking AMs every time. But I think
it depends on who's all in the wave too. Like
I know.
I don't have the tee times; they're not showing here on their leaderboard. But like, it doesn't take
I got it right here
much for some shitty guys to really pull the scoring average down.
Yeah,
I mean, you got some 86s in here. I think he was in the afternoon, but like, I mean, there's a lot of 80s. And if I know Matt McCarty was in the AM, Matt Vogt was in the AM, so it doesn't take much, and it skews it a good bit. We see that quite often with stronger fields as well. The stronger side just has a better split. Doesn't mean there was actually an advantage. It just meant the better players were going off then.
I mean, I'm not going to like base it fully off that, but I think I will kind of lean in the morning just because. But there's no like that. I don't see any besides obviously like the softer greens, shit like that in the morning.
I mean, it's logical. The
Yeah.
AM tends to score better anyways because you do have softer conditions. I think. I don't know. I mean, you could pretty much have a couple takes on why like the AM struggle with it being a little bit softer in the morning. It could make it play more difficult. The rough's a little bit thicker. It plays a little bit longer. The afternoon firms up a little bit. The guys to kind of know what to expect. Like there's a couple different avenues.
I think that has a lot to do. I think, I mean, they mentioned on the broadcast a little bit, but I really do think more so than other times in the tournament, I think a lot of those players who tee off in the PM were watching and seeing what guys were doing and how they're handling each hole.
Well, they should be, yeah. They
I
definitely
think
do.
Hyper focused on it normally than what they usually because they're. I mean, they got their ears up with this course, like
yeah.
So I think that helped the PM wave too. So maybe tomorrow we see it kind of also be the AM because they've been at it already and they get the softer conditions again.
Yeah. It's like I said, I would not stick to that split on PM being easier. So unfortunately, if you had a bunch of AM PM guys and they struggled, they're probably going to be in for a bigger struggle tomorrow. And the AM guys tomorrow probably get a nice, easier way in through the cut. So we'll see how it shakes out. So what we could do here, EAP data, if you're not familiar. So at Fantasy Golf Bet, you can go down the Showdown tab. The live tournament stats are free. It's just basic strokes gain stuff, which I've talked about plenty of times on different shows. Like it's very dependent on each one. So like looking at one of the other strokes gain categories doesn't really tell you too much on what the player did in their round. And that's kind of why Spectrum data is such a big deal for us, at least. But EAP data takes a lot of the Spectrum data, bakes it in here. We also have opportunities. So I'll kind of quickly walk through this. I know Kurt's somewhat familiar with this. The one thing we don't have, which Kurt loves, is par 5 scoring. But there's only 2 par 5s this week. So I got news for you, Kurt. It's probably not too big a deal, except for the double eagles, which suck in Showdown. Because
short par 4, you add in short. You should do glorified, like short par 4s. Like, throw that
you could break it. There's different ways you can break it down.
We'll call it the Kurt stat. Okay, go ahead.
So what we'll look at, the things that we like to focus on, obviously, are Spectrum data. So it's basically a cleansed version of strokes gained. It kind of weeds out the outliers, both positive and negative. So like a perfect example of the positive would be Patrick Reed today with an albatross. The other outlier would be like Bryson with his debacle on the par 5 where he had 3 chips and then he holed out a putt, which actually saved him. But he was losing. I think he lost like almost 2.5 shots around the green on just that hole. And I know we're not going to focus on around the green, but that's an example where Spectrum would look throughout his entire round and see what his skill level was and look for outliers in that sense. So like, if a player is gaining a little bit on every single approach shot and he loses 0.6 on one approach shot, that's considered an outlier. It automatically gets identified. So Spectrum data is the first 3 columns here. We have Spectrum off the tee, Spectrum approach, and we do include Spectrum putting, which is a very interesting discussion as well, which we won't get into tonight. We have off the tee positive and approach positive. This is literally the percentage of off the tee shots and approach shots that were positive strokes gained, which is a pretty nice look because there's ways you can gain strokes off the tee and still not gain a good percentage off the tee. So I look for like consistency. It's kind of like an overall encompassing look throughout the entire player pool. And then the big thing for us is the proximity buckets. So like you can look at proximity and get an average of 32 feet or whatever. It really helps us kind of narrow it down into looking at the 18-foot bucket or 24-foot bucket, or this week for the US Open, we can look at the 30-foot bucket and see which guys have the most opportunities in each of those compared to the field. And that kind of gives you a good indication of what their upside is going into the next round. The last thing we'll look at, so we have like typical, weighted driving distance, weighted driving accuracy. Doesn't hurt to look at. The last thing I want to do, Kurt, when we get done looking through kind of the top guys here, is we'll hop into our lineup IQ for our Showdown sims, and we'll just see which guys have like decent projections, historically good Showdown projections, and we'll include those when we run some lineups. So that's a good way to catch the guys that might have had a bad round, and you don't just completely ignore them. That's also part of the puzzle too. Is plenty of guys, especially in a good field like this, bounce back rounds are a big deal. So we will take a look at identifying those players. So where do you want to start, Kurt? I know you know the ins and outs of this. I'll also clear my favorites so we can start fresh.
So I want to start asking you, like, what's the first two stats you pull up when you're doing Showdown? What's the first two important ones to you?
Yeah, usually it's jumping right into. We can do quick filters too, which is nice. So like I know the U.S. Open is going to be a little bit more loose on the proximity. So typically I would just jump straight to 18 feet. I think this week for the U.S. Open or any of the majors, 30 feet's a good barometer. So we can kind of trim that into the top 50 right off the bat. So anybody in the top 50 for approach shots inside of 30 feet, and we can kind of trim out the bottom, 75 guys. That's the easy first one. Right off the bat, we can get that. So we can trim it further. The next thing I like to look at is obviously off the tee and approach positives. So like if someone's losing a bunch, I'll just pull up like the worst off the tee numbers. Most of these guys shouldn't be gaining off the tee, which they're not. But looking at Brian Campbell, Hideki, Richard Bland, Andrew Novak, Justin Lauer, all these guys only gained on 35, 30, 42% of their tee shots. That's not a very good indication for Oakmont going into tomorrow. So if you're only gaining on, 30% of your tee shots, you're going to have an uphill battle. An approach doesn't even matter at that point. So I would go to the off the tee for Oakmont next.
Yeah, off the tee is big. The one thing I want to mention, so you bring all the analytics and the stuff like that. Okay, so one thing I've been doing, Brooks is the most surprising. Like where did that come from? Is it Lawrence who's missed 6 of his last 8 cuts? No, it's someone up here. 6 of his last 8 cuts, like on any tour.
You can see, like, I won't get. We can get into like the Thriston stuff and the Brooks stuff. I will say too, like Thriston still didn't look great. He met the threshold for 30 feet, but like if you look through his numbers in Spectrum, he gained over 3 strokes putting. JJ Spawn made a ton of par putts. Like those guys are probably going to get weeded out here in a few short minutes. But yeah, it's a good point because it goes the other way too. That was kind of the first talking point that I had was the guys that struggled. We'll say Bryson, Xander, Sepp Straka, guys that struggle that can have a nice bounce back. It can also go the other way with guys having an unusually good round out of nowhere. They fall flat and maybe they look good. And I wouldn't say any of these guys look great, but definitely would probably pump my brakes for another round in Showdown at least. Yeah.
All right. So another thing I've been doing group stacking, but it has to match up with the stats. And I won't stack a whole group. I'll find 2 guys that are playing in a pair of threes that have a stat that sticks out to me, and I will jam the ever living shit out of them. I've been group stacking, and honest to God, Drew, it's been working.
Your group? So just to explain to everybody, you're stacking like literal groups of.
Yes. Okay. Here, this would be the best way to explain it. So I know that Ortiz doesn't have anyone else in his group I like, but one thing that stood out the most was Ortiz. He popped in, like the stats we're looking at. I'd go look at his group and see if I can find anything else of the 2 guys in his group that sticks out. I couldn't, but there'll be other examples. Like who's another guy that sticks out like a sore thumb to play in Showdown tomorrow? Sorted by something, by whatever you were doing before.
I got you. 18 feet
or 30.
Yeah.
So like Seawood, Rio, Harmon,
yeah.
like I'll see who's playing with them. Type in Seawood. Oh, I'm on data golf. Seawood's playing with. Well, it sucks about the U.S. Open because they play with some shitty people, but like Cantlay and Glover. So does anything stick out for Cantlay and Glover? Can I find anything for those 2 guys? I mean, Cantlay look like absolute dog shit, and Glover's
not really. I mean, Glover's up here, but nothing like crazy. And I don't even think Cantlay made the threshold of 30 feet, he barely crept in. So honestly, Cantlay would fall into the bounce back category because no one's going to play Cantlay after he shot 76 today.
We are kind of getting the gist of it, and like
absolutely, yeah.
I'll do like 20 or 30 hand builds, and sometimes those get really like monotonous. And so I've been doing that, and Drew, it's been working. I've been profitable the past 2 or 3 weeks. Now I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, but I really started like doing it heavily and focusing on like 80% of my hand builds doing that, and it's actually been profitable. So it's a fun way to knock out some hand builds. I know if you guys aren't doing it on Sims and are hand building, or maybe you just have like a couple more left right down to 2 minutes left before lock. Yeah. It's a fun thing I like to do, and it helps. But,
so did you jam Rory and Shane Lowry today?
Look, I didn't like Rory, but seeing Rose and Lowry, 2 guys who love round 1 together, be in the same group because it was Rose, Lowry, and Rory, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that group got me a little excited. I can't lie.
I figured.
But I played. Who was in Brooks's group? I did group stack Brooks's.
I don't recall who was in Brooks's group.
Oh yeah, Brooks, Minwoo, Justin. I really like the Brooks and Minwoo stack. How did Minwoo do? I haven't even seen how much Showdown did. I'm pretty sure I got 80% back or something.
Yeah, Minwoo, JT, and Brooks Koepka.
What Minwoo do? Because Brooks did fine.
Brooks had Minwoo had a rough.
Did he really? God,
I played him in late Showdown.
Yeah, 7 over. And Thomas was bad too, but not great for round 1.
No, but I get what you're saying.
I've been doing it on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, not Sundays or first rounds. But
to
anyway,
be fair, maybe your luck box in these like featured groupings, because they put these guys together.
It'll be. What's funny is it'll be your scrubs sometimes.
Sometimes. But like all the good guys, like if we looked up, obviously Scheffler.
Yeah, no, you can't just stack like the most expensive guys in the featured group, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Scheffler, Morikawa, sure.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about.
I got you.
That's cheating.
Who's Rom paired with? Spieth, DJ sucks. So, yeah, Rom and Spieth would have done pretty well today.
There you go.
So we should set a group. You could do 2 of a group, but let's.
I never ever play 3 of them. Never play a full group.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
But you played golf, so do you not think that sometimes you go concerned? Now
it's a thing. Yeah, it absolutely is a thing.
But do you think it's less of a thing on courses where you can't really score as much?
I mean, because the scoring's not going to be low anyways.
Yeah.
It's relative though. I mean, if 2 of those 3 guys shoot 1 under par, that's fantastic. I mean,
yeah. True.
It doesn't. It's not like I think you're going for the narrative that someone gets hot, they shoot 5 under on the front. Some guy shoots 3 or 4, and they try to keep pace.
Keith Mitchell did it last week twice.
No, I know what you're getting at. It does. I don't think that doesn't hold weight in the U.S. Open just because the scoring's more difficult.
Okay, good. That's what I need to hear.
It's certainly viable because like a Shane Lowry and Rory pairing, I get. Any of those guys, especially bounce back spots, I would probably be pretty.
Well, then I'm going to keep doing it, baby. Let's go. All right.
Let's finish wrapping up the. So this is 18 feet. We'll trim out the bottom because there are definitely some. Let's just keep it at 50. So now we're trimming the pool pretty good. We still got plenty of guys that are down, shooting. Oh God, we got Justin Hicks and Dwayne Main. Is that your guy, Dwayne Main? And you're muted again. This is really good. This.
Dwayne Man, bro. That's the guy he was talking about. He the text me. I was like, who are you talking about?
I know. I saw him.
The guy's name is Doug Man. And he dead fucking last. His name is Doug Manny, bro. Like, oh God. You can't come out here. I mean, you can be second to last. You can't be Doug Man, be dead fucking last, dog. You got to shoot a 15 over. You just got to. You got to avoid that. All right. I'm sorry. Sorry, Doug Man.
All right. I think I got a pretty good set of guys right now. So looking through like the approach numbers. Off the tee. Look at it. Grillo gained on 100% of his tee shots. Fantastic. So, yeah, let's just do this. I'm going to take out what did I look at? Did I pull approach? Just going to double check if I did do that. Nope, it's not picking it up. That's all right. So I'm going to do
I wouldn't be so heavy on Grillo coming into the week, but I'm a pussy. I know he's historically a bad putter, but he's also historically terrible around the greens too, right?
Grillo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, his entire short game's just trash. But I mean, if he's so dialed with the irons, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Darren's in the chat, and he asked this question on our stream on Tuesday night, I think it was. He's like, because we have an approach IQ tool that kind of narrows down every single bucket, and you can focus in on it. And he was basically made the argument like guys are probably going to have to chip out, and should we be looking at their wedge game for the chip outs? And it just like if they're having to chip out that much, we're dead. So it's not even worth really looking at. Yeah. I will say like the logic for looking through the proximities though, like 6 feet, you'll see guys. I mean, there's no big spread. Like there's not many guys hitting multiple shots inside of 6 feet. Victor Hovland had a few, but at the U.S. Open, like 6 feet is more random than like predictive. 18 feet is kind of my cutoff in this type of event. I would go to 12 feet at like the Sony Open or, the American Express, Pebble Beach maybe. But I think this week, 30 feet, 24 feet, 18 feet is a pretty good threshold. So let's get those guys kind of sorted out. I think 30 feet is good.
Guy, how do you not like Bryson tomorrow? Good round 2 score. Kind of looked like shit today. Approach was good. Off the tee was fine.
All these guys are pretty good. I'm just gonna finish sorting. So I love looking at the splits of off the tee and approach as well. So we'll take out like like Patrick Reed. I mean, Spectrum data. I don't know what his strokes gain was. I don't have that pulled up. I had it up a minute ago.
Yeah, albatross.
But he had Spectrum has him losing 1.5 shots on approach. So I assume strokes gain's a bit higher than that. All right. I don't want Keegan, Joe Highsmith. I'll leave Connors in there. He's borderline. Chris Kirk,
three over
Hoagie. Ryan Gerard. I'm actually going to add Gerard back. So he doesn't meet the threshold for the approach shots.
Who cares, Adam? Good round 2 score.
Oh, we're going to round 2.
He's a good round 2 score. Look, I'm going to bring it. You get the analytics. I'll bring up the Outlander shit.
I got you. I think we're good. I'm going to take out a couple of these guys that were negative off the tee in Spectrum. So like Nick Taylor, Doug Gam losing off the tee and losing putting. That's not a good combo. And I'll leave Cantley in there for now. We'll look at his projection. So with that being said, I think we have a decent selection of players. It looks pretty safe. I don't know if there was any specific questions in the chat to look at. We can hop back into it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take those favorites and we're going to hop into lineup IQ. We'll hop into Showdown. So now all of our favorites are stored in here. So we can go ahead and build lineups. So we have in total 36 guys. So out of 157 or 156 players, we just went through and sorted down to the top 36. Now, what we can do, we can run this once and we can come back and look at it. So you can see, like, we cut out Rahm, we cut out Xander, we cut out McIlroy off a couple kind of higher level looks. Those would probably be worth adding in and just seeing what the Sims do. But let's run it without, and then we can come back in and add a few of these high projected guys and see if maybe one of them pops more often than what we're even kind of giving them credit for. Because again, in a Showdown, single round variance, any of these guys can bounce back, have a bad round, and come back. So it's not a real big concern, especially for the top guys. It's kind of more relevant when we look down here at the cheap guys and say, like, Andrew Novak has not been playing the best over the last couple of weeks. Didn't really look good. Tony Finau is kind of in the same boat. Olesen was trending down. Minwoo Lee is out there. So let's go ahead and run this and let's see what we have. So let's run 1,500 lineups and see. I think exposures I have set, so I'll open that up. We'll just wide open run some Showdown lineups. All right, so right off the bat, so 36 players, we used every one of them. Scotty's still the highest, just strictly off the projection. So 60% for Scotty, 30% Bryson. We get a bunch of Lanto as a cheap guy. He is priced at 6,200. So I imagine we're starting to get a bunch of stars and scrubs in Showdown. Scotty and Bryson, which is unlike what we had for Classic with the variance with the cut added in there. But like if we look up, I'll just do Bryson actually. If we look through Bryson, just quickly glancing through this, done with Scheffler. Okay, that's perfect. So Bryson's getting paired with Morikawa. He's getting paired with, I see Fleetwood a bunch, Sungjae M, Spieth, nothing crazy. So it's pretty balanced. So let's just run 5,000 Sims really quick on these 1,500 lineups. And then I'll cut out the bottom 75% or so. And let's see what that looks like.
Dietrich's irons have been absolutely dialed these last 2 weeks. My God. Is it running?
Yeah. It's almost done. Takes about 30 seconds for that to run. All right. So let's just take out, we'll do a couple splits actually. We'll take out the bottom 75% for win. It'd help if I'm not sorted on Bryson. And then let's look at like top 10s. Take out the bottom 75% there. So we still we have plenty of lineups to look through, but that's 260. And let's see how that shakes out. So this is what the exposures look like just simming out with our projections at Fantasy Golf Bag. So Scotty's still close to 70% of lineups. Now we got Carlos Ortiz, Russell Henley, Aaron Rai, Morikawa, Corey Connor. So honestly, a pretty good exposure list right off the bat. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really like Ortiz. I really like Ortiz and Henley tomorrow. I like all these guys pumping. I mean, I'm never playing Spieth. I'm not a Spieth guy. Like, I don't care what the stats could tell me. The Spieth's gonna go out there and shoot 400 tomorrow.
He's been pretty good.
Oh, he's been awesome. This is a good type of like track for him.
Yeah, he's been good.
Care.
Spectrum data likes him.
And if you're ever gonna play him, probably smart to do it in Showdown too. But I still won't do it because fuck him. I click that button, he shoots 8 over. It's like what?
All right, let's trim this. Let's run it one more time. So let's bump this to 10,000 sims. And if you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm trying to follow along with the YouTube chat. I just see Tom Jones. Look out for Brooks. Brooks is kind of a prick, and we all know that. But I don't know while that's running and it just finished. But I don't know if you caught, he had a presser after his round, and he was talking about his coach, I think it was Cowan, was talking to him in a bunker and was basically laying into him that you suck. Like, grow up. Was kind of the gist of it, probably with some expletives in there. And the guy goes, he doesn't do that often? He goes, no. He goes, when was the last time he did that? He said, Aaron Hills. I was like, oh, so he's basically calling out that he's going to win this week because the last time that his coach kind of laid into him, he won a U.S. Open. So we'll see. Maybe Brooks has a little chip on his shoulder. He's not getting talked about anymore. He's just maybe that's the motivation he needs. He's getting left out. He needs some attention.
It seems to be that because
he's definitely attention seeking for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty even right now. I honestly like this quite a bit. So I would go further and kind of trim this.
Ooh, look at that.
What are you looking at?
I like all those guys tomorrow. I really like Scott, love Grillo, love Henley, love Ortiz, like Gerard. Oh man,
because like Carlos Ortiz fits in. He's 6,900. Same with Grillo at 6,700, and then everything else is basically in the mid range. Just pairing it up with Scheffler, which I like quite a bit. Going off in the morning, he gets a price decrease down to 13.4 off of 14.4. Obviously, they're lower in pricing. It's not down to 5K. But it makes a lot more sense in Showdown than Classic when you're trying to build with literally 50 of the best players in the world, and Scotty's up there at 14.4. He's 3,000 more expensive than the next guy. It's tough to make sense of that. So this looks pretty good. I'm going to trim it a little bit further because I'm actually going to run some of these for tomorrow. And then we'll run it wide open and just see if anybody else pops in our projections and sims that we did not capture. But again, just to like recap, not just for you, Kurt, because I know you're sharp as a tack. You're following along. But like, this is like the player pool based on the Showdown EAP data. Cut out 50% there. And then building lineups off of that. Let's see what the top 10 looks like.
How did Grayersman do today? Terrible, right?
Yeah. Grillo?
Grayersman.
Gracerman?
What, Gracerman?
That's Gracerman? Yeah, it's
Gracerman. It's Gracerman. You're right. Oh my God, there's an S there. I never noticed that.
We're getting more and more Ortiz, which is interesting. Our projections tend to like the live guys, which is funny. So I'm going to export these, probably mess with them later. Let me make sure I got all of those. I didn't have to select them all. Those are my round one matchups. All right, we're good there. So like I said, I'm not gonna add in all the cheap guys again because they're cheap for a reason and we didn't select them. So like it's obvious they didn't do anything for us and don't do anything in our projections to warrant to playing them. But what I want to do, Kurt, really quick before we kind of wrap up this show 10 or 15 minutes or so. But let's go ahead and add in all the expensive guys with good projections. And let's see if anything different happens in those exposures. So let's just go down all the 8K guys. Keep Harris English in there. We'll do McNeely and Reed. We'll skip Rose and Fox. Their projections aren't great. We'll do McIntyre, even though he had a bad round. Batia, Pendrith, and Berger. I think.
Wait, who had a bad round?
Who did I say?
The stats wise, McIntyre did.
Yeah, I don't think because we didn't have him selected, so we obviously didn't see much. Boxing. Yeah, so let's run 1,500 with that bigger pool, still wide open with the exposures, and let's see what starts to shift just from a projection standpoint. So pretty similar right off the bat. We do get some Rory in there. We do get a little bit more Rahm, Fleetwood, Xander. Makes sense. So let's sim it and then see what happens with these lineups now. Because again, like the biggest thing with simulations is obviously the projections are pretty important to be accurate, but the lineup construction dictates if the lineup is good. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. So like what we saw in the classic sims this week for the full week slate was like the price on Scheffler was just too restrictive to building decent lineups outside a very small percentage of outcomes with Lanto Griffin or a Thurston Lawrence, finishing in the top 10. So all in all, it's a little bit different when you start to consider the showdown structure. So let's take a peek here. Get all those bad lineups out. Let's get those bad lineups out. There you go. So similar. I forget who we didn't include. Was it Rahm? I think we didn't include Rahm. So now you see Scheffler jumps down.
McIntyre wasn't in
moves
there.
Back up. Yep.
Neiman wasn't in there. I found my group, by the way.
What group is it?
It's your twin. Neiman and your twin. I like Neiman and your twins a little group. Now deep GPP because they both were kind of Berger was okay, but Neiman sucked ass. But I liked.
I did like Bud Colley this week too, which sucks.
Oh yeah, shit. Bud's in that group too. Damn.
You could play all three.
No. Hey, that's against the rules, buddy. It's against the rules.
Well, you can play that group a lot of different ways. It'd be like a round robin group.
Yeah, like that. I'll definitely be doing that. Because one of them is going to probably get one of them is going to be ejecto, but I think two will do well.
Aaron Rye, yeah.
Two loves.
Yeah, he's on the best lineup in the Millie Maker, so we'll see if he can hang on.
How'd Phil do today?
Lanto pops every time. Yeah. Might have to check on that, Crack. Something's wrong. I think someone hacked into and gave some Lanto.
Hasn't his ball striking been decent lately, or am I crazy?
He's actually been okay because I looked at playing him earlier in the season. Off the tee, spectrum wise, yeah, honestly, spectrum off the tee has been positive. Approach has been kind of mediocre or poor. Strokes gain looks like it's negative, but spectrum shows he's been pretty good. So honestly, it's not too surprising.
Found something last week.
That is true, yeah. You can also toggle between like the strokes gain numbers. So like round 3 and 4 in strokes gain, he lost off the tee. Spectrum shows he basically flattened round 3 and gained a whole shot in round 4. So yeah, it gets a little bit misleading when you just use strokes gained and include all those tee shots. All right, so we ran that. Let's just trim this a little bit further. I think we can kind of overlap these two pools, which is kind of what I want to do. Let me just double check the bottom range here. Let's just delete out the bottom 50. Bottom 50. And we're pretty much there. Slightly, 24. That's pretty good because the other sample was 25. So yeah, Carlos Ortiz continues to pop. So he's like the number one guy. If you want to count like from an exposure standpoint, he is the highest in both our kind of quick look through the EAP data off of round 1 and using the projections. He sims out really well. And then if you include even more players, he still pops out. And so in 24 lineups, trying to trim it down to like a realistic player pool, that most people will play. Because like out of 150, and you start to look at 30% or 40% exposure, it's a little bit different. But 13 of 24 lineups is pretty reasonable for most DFS players that aren't maxing the $25 GPP. So Rom was the big change, and then Scheffler. I'm not even sure Scheffler. Yeah, Scheffler drops when you start to include who was it that we included? It was Rom,
McIntyre.
There's a couple others, yeah, but I think Rom's the big one. Like as soon as you include Rom, the preference on Scheffler goes way down. So 13.4 for Scheffler, and Rom is 9.8. So yeah, there's another $3,400 price tag difference. And Rom's projection is somewhat similar, point per dollar, if not higher, 28.6 to 33. So yeah, if I boiled it down, man, it's really you hammer Rahm and Ortiz. It's a lot of live guys. Rahm, Ortiz, Neiman, Henley, and Grillo. They were also in that first batch of simulations.
I'm sorry. Burns is going to keep dry shoving it up my ass because I don't trust his driver at all.
I think he found something, dude.
You think so? That would make sense.
These guys kind of come and go, and the Canadian Open looked pretty good. He had a real bad at the Truist, kind of mediocre at the Memorial, but like he's been every other event off the tee is right here. Every other event spiking, but staying positive in every single category. Approach is kind of the one that's been dipping, and that bounced back last week. So
I just feel like his putting's evened out here. Don't you feel like? Like his best ability. Obviously not because he's doing well, but like I feel like his best ability. That's why I don't like him, because it gets kind of.
Well, you can see a big difference in like strokes gained putting and spectrum putting. Like these are like longer putts he made that skewed some of those strokes gained metrics. Because like when you pull up spectrum putting, now all of a sudden he's gaining half a stroke putting in that event, 2.4. When strokes gained had him gaining 7 and 8 and 5. Like there's ways that you can have outliers in putting. If you think about a guy that didn't make anything inside of 10 feet, and then all of a sudden he made a 35 footer or a 45 footer. It's going to really, really skew your number to thinking you're a good putter and you're not. So, we actually have his putting worse than what it's been. So, yeah, I honestly, dude, I like the player pool. Grillo, Henley, Ortiz, Rahm is kind of like the big chunk. McNeely was kind of up there, right? Adam Scott is mediocre. Adam Scott hasn't been good though, so Adam Scott's probably the one that scares me the most.
I love Adam Scott.
Do you?
I feel like
off the tee's been great, and honestly, that's pretty important here. But like approach has been average at best.
His putting
looked times, so.
From the visual test, his putting looked good today. I don't know how to explain that. It's like he looked good. I watched a lot of his holes. I think I watched probably 10 of his holes somehow. Oh, because I was watching the A-Bears group. That's why. When I was work was slow this morning, so I was just watching the entire group.
What did Aberg do today? I didn't even look at him. Let's clear this
Started
out.
off 2 under, and then
I know I was following him because we've been hammering him for
take his medicine,
a couple
bro.
Weeks.
He was just trying to do.
He
way
looks
too much.
great.
He was trying to do way too much. I think he learned a lot from that round. I'll say that. So we'll see. I don't want to jinx him because I need him so bad tomorrow. So yeah.
Yeah, going off in the PM, but Aberg, his numbers are.
I mean, bro, he just hits it so fucking straight, like and
but
long.
he hasn't. He's struggled. He was struggling a couple months ago, and it was not good.
But he was hurt.
Yeah, he said his knee got better, but we'll see.
Nah, he had a nagging injury, bro. Trust me.
Get in there, find out.
Get in there, make it about you.
Find out about it.
No, but I mean,
yeah, he looked good today. Yeah, if you boil it down, he gained on 80% of his tee shots, 70% of his approaches. I would say he was probably the best cumulative guy when you start to bake in positive off the tee. Ortiz was up there, Siwoo Kim. So he was right there in line with Morikawa. If we really boiled it down, like here, I'll just do this really quick. James Nicklaus, I wouldn't trust we'll see. I hope the best for him, but I would not trust one good round from him in the U.S. Open.
His mom was attractive for an old lady.
Huh?
His mom was kind of attractive for an old lady. Shout out to her.
His mom?
Yeah, I mean she's old, but like not bad.
Well, that's good. Maybe I'll play him now.
So you got that going for him. I'm not gonna play him, but
so I'll just list it out for the people that are listening. If we just lose the off the tee positive and negative, so this kind of goes in line with Spectrum in a way where it kind of looks for the consistency over the round. Ortiz, honestly, the putting thing, people will look at that and say, oh, that means he's due to gain strokes putting tomorrow. And that's not always how it works. He can honestly lose close to the same, or even if he lost 2 strokes putting, it doesn't really help him too much. But his ball striking numbers look great. So just don't just think that's an automatic rebound. It doesn't work that way. But I would say Ortiz, Siwoo Kim, Colin Morikawa, Thomas Dietrich, Bryson looks really good. Bridgman is interesting. Adam Scott. I mentioned Aberg. He must be further down.
Adam Scott. Here's the thing I like about Scott.
Yeah.
He's going to go out there. He's going to shoot you 8 over.
There's Aberg. Right
or he's going to shoot you like an awesome round. And you'll know it early. Like, I've had him when he shoots the 8 over. It's like, oh, well. But then, man, when you have him on a good day, oh, baby.
He's also only 7,000.
He lights it up, son. Like
he's only 7,000. So, like, there's very little risk for
I think it's
the security of a veteran. I've used this analogy before, and I always go back to it because it's kind of fun to think about. Like, if you had to go to Oakmont tomorrow, and you're like, all right, I got one guy, and I just, you can't pick any of the studs. You're looking in the 7K range. Adam Scott's there; he's on the first tee. You're like, man, I gotta put my money on somebody. And this is a big deal. Like, I'm gonna get kicked out of my house, or I'm gonna win this bet, right?
To go low, or what?
To not like blow up at 7K, 72 or better, right? Let's call it that. So now you're going down here into Adam Scott, and you got Brian Harmon, Eric Cole, JT Poston, Nico Echevarria, even Wyndham Clark and Cam Davis. Right. Yeah, I'm going to go pick Adam Scott and say, Scott. Thank you, Adam Scott. I can trust you to shoot 72 or better at 7K.
So what you're saying is if the A-Ones are coming down from Mars and you need somebody to hit one shot, who are you taking on the Warriors? I'm taking Iguodala.
Iguodala.
I'm taking Adam Scott, baby.
I see a couple questions, so I'll go back to this. Hopefully Darren's still in the chat. Is there a benefit to trimming top 10 than top 5 afterwards? I just tinker with it, to be honest, Darren. I've done it in my own stuff. He's talking about the simulation. So usually I look for win percentage first, and then I'm like, okay, well, I still want I still want lineups that are consistently in the top 10 or the top 5, because there's some lineups that will have decent win percentage, but they only win almost the same amount as they finish in the top 10. Like, it's very, very boom or bust. And those are okay to play too. But I'm looking for high win equity. And then also like, okay, well, I also want lineups that are consistently, performing pretty well. So yeah, I would say, if you're trimming at a small amount, going through these is totally fine. What I was doing earlier, if you noticed, I would sort by like top 10, and I would look at, okay, what's the highest value? We're looking at 12-ish%. And then I jumped to the bottom range, and it was like 7%. I'm like, okay, well, I can cut out half the pool right there, because there's a big difference between a 7% top 10 rate and a 12% top 10 rate. So yeah, that's a good exercise in my mind, to just make sure win isn't the biggest priority. It's a big priority, but I also kind of want to cash some lineups. And I want to make sure that I don't have guys just completely, winning 50K, or I'm going to lose 60% of the time. So it's just a way for me to kind of smooth that out a little bit. All right, let's see. Crack Drafters in the chat. He was also agreeing with you, Kurt. I forget. Who was that? James Nicholas? Is that what we're talking about? You're muted again.
They're watching a movie back here, so I'm trying to like spare you guys. I'm sorry.
You're good. I do see you saw that. Okay, perfect. But yeah, so I see a few extra people joined. So like the first batch we ran was basically our player pool off the Showdown EAP data. And then we kind of walked through a few other like really high performers that stand out the most. Like if you're going to hand build a lineup, it's really easy to click through like the highest, the best off the tee and approach splits, and also the proximities that's in the EAP data. And then when we sim those, we also looked at like the most overlap. So the overlap was really Ortiz, Rahm, Henley, Grillo, and I want to say Neiman, but he wasn't really in our first initial run. But I think Grillo, Ortiz, or really the cheap core. And then what, you want to play Rahm and Bryson or both? You know, you kind of want to pair one of those at least in every lineup.
Bang, bang, Niner gang. Oh, what do you think about playing 3 in the AM? At least 3 in the AM.
Yeah, you could do that. I don't really care, to be honest. I think it'd probably be smart to. I mean, I usually just run it.
Yeah.
And look for the variance just to kind of shake out in my favor. But honestly, it's probably not a bad idea to, at least if you're building more than a few lineups, to look at stacking an entire wave or close to an entire wave, just in case something like today happens, right? Like you would have missed out on spawn in the AM, but you would have had a pretty good pool in the afternoon. So at least 3, if that's what you want to say, at least 3 in the AM. Yeah, I would agree with that.
At least when hand building. I mean, when I put on Saber, like I don't really give a shit. But
it's just a good. It's at least a good tie break, right?
Yeah.
Because like, let's just say you're down to your last spot and you had Ortiz and Grillo. I think they're about the same price, 6,900 and 6,700. And you can look at, they're both teeing off in the AM. But let's just say one was in the AM, one was in the PM. That's an easy way for you to make that decision and just say, okay, I'm just gonna assume the conditions are going to be a little bit calmer, a little bit more forgiving in the morning, and I'll play Grillo or vice versa. So, yeah, I agree with that. Let's see. Most of these are pretty moderate, so I like it. Anything left for you, Kurt? The goal is to be back here tomorrow and do this again. So
yeah, we got to see how the day goes first. I mean, tomorrow. If I do good, I'll be back. If I do bad, sometimes good, sometimes maybe sheep. Nah, just kidding. Let's do a 2-man core. Let's do a draft. See what we got for tomorrow. I got DraftKings pulled up.
Okay, yeah.
Who's your favorite play right now?
I mean, I don't want to go cheap right off the bat, but I will. I'm gonna say Grillo.
Beep boop beep beep. I will go.
I will say this too, for those listening, I've told all of our fantasy golf bag members that, like, especially if you're hand building, I don't know about you, Kurt, starting in like the mid range or the bottom is like my favorite way to build a hand build lineup, because you're left with salary at the end that either allows you to play Scheffler or allows you to play Bryson. And you're not stuck with like, God, I got 50, in the classics, like 5,600 left. Then I got to go change everything if I don't want to play anybody down there. So I do like starting with the cheap guys. So Grillo's probably how I go about it anyways.
I do the same thing. How did Burgers look in the spectrum? Like what does shit look like?
Let's take a look.
Daniel Berger.
Pretty good. I forgot about Aberg. Definitely going to be picking.
All right, yeah, mine will be Burger. I'm going to go your twin. What up, twin?
Burger? So we got 2 cheap guys, so that's good. Aberg's in the afternoon. These tee times are flipped because they haven't updated for round 2 yet. I don't want to pick him yet. I will say let's just jam Rahm. Let's just jam Rahm. I think he's going to be the best play on the slate.
Rambo.
Best play from a like raw, low scoring perspective. Like he could shoot 500 tomorrow. That's my opinion.
I will go.
And he's not that expensive, dude. Like, come on.
I don't want to go Ortiz. I really like Ortiz tomorrow. I'm not. Sort by. Can you get back to the sort thing, or you want to keep that up?
Yeah, I can. Where do you want to go?
Sort by 30 feet. What the fuck? Eric Cole? Really?
Yeah, he did. And somehow he lost 2 strokes off the tee in Spectrum, and he hit a bunch of shots close out of the rough.
What's Hard Daddy look like? Harmer's in the afternoon too. I don't mind 2 gloves, man.
You have to keep in mind too, Kurt, and everybody else, like the 30 feet bucket is pretty big, but I think that's sufficient for the U.S. Open. But you'll see, like, there's not. But
I'm looking at other stuff though too. Like I'm sorting it by that.
Yeah.
But I mean, off the tee, like Rye keeps it in play, man. That's what you got to do here. Give me some Aaron Rye, and that leaves you with 94 per.
Okay, so what can we fit with that? So we already had Rom. Where is? I'd say Morikawa. Morikawa is 9,400. I would definitely plug him.
Oh no, we got 2 spots left.
I know. I would definitely plug him first.
And then let me see what you're falling on to.
And probably Aberg, to be honest.
Oh shit, is he there? Oh
He
wow,
should be,
that's
right?
pretty tasty. I would play Neiman, that way I can stack Burger, but I'll play that too.
Is Neiman going off in the?
He's with Burger in that little stack I talked about. But I mean, Aberg's a better play.
What
But...
was Neiman's stuff?
Yeah, pull his ass up.
It wasn't great, but like I said, like 1 round bounce backs happen quite often for quote unquote the top guys in the world. So like this wouldn't, if you were pretty high on Neiman to start the week, I would not tell anybody to not play him again in round 2 just because he had 1 bad round. But yeah, I mean, to be completely fair though, Aberg looks exponentially better. So it can go both ways. I would say Aberg, but that's just me.
I put him in. I just threw it in the drive the green real quick.
Okay, well, congrats on your win.
See you at the top, boys. Let's get a chop. Imagine a showdown chop. The U.S. Open.
Recap that really quick. What was it? It was Morikawa. Was Morikawa in there?
We got Aaron Rai, Griot, Morikawa, Abear,
Rom
Burger.
It's pretty good.
I think I repeated Burger. Yeah, Burger, Griot.
No, you didn't repeat.
Rom, Morikawa, Abear, Rai.
I like it.
Ball Strikers Paradise, baby.
All right, man.
All right,
that is the bottom of the hour. That's an hour show with Kurt. As always, Kurt, dude, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your round 2, and we'll be back tomorrow for round 3. Looking at round 2 stats. See you guys.